Healing parts of the mother wound. This one's tough. It can be painful when we don't feel nurtured, when we don't feel connected to ourselves, to our mother, or to our mother figure, or to that divine feminine, to that feminine that represents the mother in our lives. I received a question from a follower, and I want to go into this and ask the question straight up, and let's explore this, because this is an interesting one. I have this issue with my mother. You could say it's from childhood. She didn't love me the way that I needed to be loved. I have limiting beliefs and self-doubt because of it. Well, I now have children of my own, and I'm not satisfied with the way that she speaks to them. She no doubt loves them with every part of her being, but she doesn't know how to lovingly criticize. She has to be right all of the time. It's her tone of voice. Everything must be her way, and the kids are beginning to see this, and they don't like it. I've mentioned things to her that my daughter says that made her upset, and my mum just gets defensive and feels like she cannot say anything right and says I would do anything for those kids. My question is, how do I deal with this? How do I tell her? How do we get this relationship right? So there's obviously a lot here, right? And it's more than just getting the relationship right. And there's some clues that this question leaves behind when we begin to understand the mother wound and the abandonment of this, or rather the lack of nurturing. That she says very clearly, she didn't love me the way that I needed to be loved. So we often make relationships mean something. We often make the way people treat us or the way people behave, we often make that mean something about ourselves. And the pain can be when we take that personally. We internalize the actions of others and we make it about us. We shame ourselves. It's our fault that they're treating me this way. And now I have limiting beliefs and self-doubt because of it. Now, these experiences can be very painful. When we're growing up, we're looking for direction. We're looking for a source of inspiration. We're looking for guidance. We're looking to be understood, to help us navigate the world. We look to our parents, or we look to elders in our community or in our family dynamic to help guide us. It's not always our mother and our father. It could be a primary caregiver such as a grandfather or a grandmother, an uncle, an auntie, friends of the family that we looked up to, that we're close to, that we share an intimacy with. And if we feel that we didn't receive the love that we needed at that time and later on in life, upon reflecting back on those times, we often feel tremendously discouraged and we lose that bond and that connection. And now as an adult, this woman is still struggling with her mother because she hasn't healed that wound within her. She hasn't made it mean something different. There is still self-doubt there. There is still pain there. There are still limiting beliefs around who she is in the world. There is pain in the disconnection of not feeling that nurturing presence, not feeling that loving touch and connection from the mother. There's also some clues left in the actual question itself. How do I deal with this? How do I tell her? How do we get this relationship right? It's not her responsibility to get the relationship right. See, often with the mother wound, when we don't feel nurtured, when we don't feel appreciated, loved, cared for, where we don't have or experience that compassion from someone that we look up to, and we continue to deify them, because we do that as children, we deify our parents, right? And so if we continue to deify our parents as adults, where we don't break that understanding, that connection, and transcend into the new dynamic of relationship. Not that it's equals per se. I mean, there's an equality there, sure. Well, there's an equity there rather, sure. But more to the point where we stop seeing them as this idolized, pedestalized person, an individual, and we stop giving all of our power to them, thinking that they can do everything for us, nurture us, hold our hearts. We don't move into our own individuality or sense of individuality, our own sovereignty, our own sense of empowerment. We lose that connection to ourselves. So there's a lot here. How do we get this relationship right? I like that she's at least saying we. That's a good thing. But it's not her responsibility or your responsibility to get anything right within the relationship, within the context of the relationship. Because this also infers fixing something. So My immediate guidance here is to go deeper within, to continue going deep within and looking at feeling the feelings that were unfelt during those experiences as a child. Now, as a mother and as an adult, when she continues to do this, it will bring up a lot of stuff. It might bring up pain to the surface of one's awareness. But we get to then deal with that pain. It becomes malleable. We get to move it through our bodies, whether it's through breath, whether it's through somatic healing, counseling, psychology, other somatic work, spiritual healing, shamanic practice, whatever it may be. We get to move these feelings, feel them, give them context, and layer a new meaning on above them and over them. If mum isn't listening and you want to raise children a certain way, stepping into compassionate expression around that is crucial. That's the starting point. If you're really seeing that your mother is having a negative effect on the way your children are seeing themselves, and it's almost like a history repeating itself process, then you may have to make a very difficult choice in limiting the exposure. Or maybe it's not just limiting the exposure to your mother, but also teaching, helping your children understand where mum is coming from. See, I can't, or no one can really give you the advice you need. You know intrinsically what feels right for you based on how you're choosing to raise your children. And you need to be empowered to really make those decisions, to go into that place, because that's important for you. And part of the pattern is actually being independent here in a healthy way and making decisions for yourself, self-nurturing, self-care, self-love. That's part of the mother wound, part of healing the mother wound. And father wound and mother wound are very extensive pain points that we experience. But part of it, and contextually here, to what we are speaking to, part of that for you is stepping into your individuality and nurturing yourself and nurturing your needs and asking yourself, what do I need as a mother now? What do I need to be doing for my children? What do I need to be doing for me? What do I need right now? And part of healing the old wounds, the parental wounds, the mother wound or the father wound, part of that is really reparenting oneself. And so what you didn't receive from your mother, you get to get really clear on that. What was it that I didn't receive from mum that I needed? She didn't love me the way that I needed her to love me. What does that actually mean? What did I need specifically? And then you get to give that to yourself. You empower yourself to give that firstly to you. And secondly, it may not, but it may be something that your children need from you as well. So you get to play that out, live that in another way, and grow from what you did not experience when you were younger as a child and get to experience that now as an adult. But it does begin with reparenting self. So here, self-care, self-worth, self-love, it's everything. And so healing that relationship with mum is undoubtedly going to take time. It's going to require effort, going into uncomfortable places. Does it completely require mum? No, not necessarily. But you may have to put some really healthy boundaries in place. You may have to put some boundaries in place in not only how mum communicates with you and your children, again, in a compassionate, loving way, but also how often they're spending time together, because we know that our environment, it influences who we become, particularly children who walk around in a hypnagogic state from the ages of 0 to 7 and even up to 12, really absorbing everything that's in their environment. And so we know from social psychology and relationship-based psychology that so much damage can be done at a young age if children aren't nurtured in healthy, appropriate ways. We have to sort of, quote unquote, undo that as adults. So this is where the reparenting process comes in. So there's a lot here. But begin with you. Begin with self-care, reparenting, communicating to yourself and with yourself in a very loving, open, transparent way, in a compassionate, nurturing way. Be mindful of the self-talk, how you're speaking to yourself. Are you angry at yourself often? Do you feel over-responsible for people? Do you feel responsible for mum? Do you feel over-responsible for your children? Getting back into a healthy sense of self is really important. Again, self-care, massages for yourself, moving your body, nourishing your body with healthy food, exposing yourself to loving environments, having meaningful, connected, intimate conversations with people, understanding and knowing what your self-worth is, journaling to that having a reflective praxis, recognizing your value. A gratitude practice can help you because it helps change the frequency of your mind and your body, helps bring you back into what's valuable about who you are. Thinking about and giving thought and attention to how have you served others in your life? How have you shown up for others? What value do you bring to others? Knowing that you are worthy intrinsically, independently of what someone else may think of you. And that's a long journey and a long process. But the mother wound, that not being nurtured, not being cared for, not being attended to in that way as a child, can really mess us up as adults in terms of what we think about ourselves, the self-doubt that we have, the lack of belief in ourselves and what we actually feel and think we're capable of. And so the opportunity is to go deeper into that and keep working on you. With all of that said, mother and father relationships are important and they can be tough. Learning to communicate in each other's languages, cultural languages, love languages, spiritual languages, learning to speak in each other's fears and wounding can be very useful in terms of not triggering and activating others. Then we get to a point, in our lives where we start to think about, well, what about them? Why don't they make some changes in their lives? Why don't they make a difference? Why don't they make the effort? We can't control what's outside of ourselves, but we can control or have greater mastery of our internal faculties and how we think about life and how we feel about life, and empower ourselves to make choices that are healthy for us. And that's the starting point. And so whilst no one can tell you what to do, there are many options you can take. And my suggestion from the experience that I've had, not only with my own mother wounding, but also working with so many different people, women and men, is nurture yourself, self-care, self-compassion. Be attentive to how you speak to yourself. Get clear on what you really want. What is your heart desire for how you wish your children to experience life? And can you reparent yourself in a loving way? Can you give yourself what you did not receive as a child? Can you give that to yourself as an adult? Hypnosis, visualization work can really help here. And being more playful, being in that childlike essence that is us, that can be very, very powerful for us. So, sending you power and blessings. If this resonates with you, drop some love in the comments and share this video, because so many of us have experienced pain in our lives and we need to know that we're not alone. We need to know that we're sharing. And we're not just sharing pain and suffering, we're sharing joy and happiness as well. We're sharing connectedness and intimacy. But often when we feel that we're not alone, we are more approachable towards that issue and that pain that we've been neglecting and numbing for so long. So share this video. Power and blessings to you. I'll see you soon.